Hello, dear guests. I hope, and I will, okay. I hope you enjoyed the lunch and the posters and the demos of our team. And now we are starting the scientific forum from our event. And we are starting with the first panel. And I will ask Richard Stevens to introduce the panelists and to moderate the panel with inspiring speeches.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome everyone to this portion of the day. We're going to be talking about big data and innovation, and the GATE and the relationship to GATE. And we have a number of illustrious speakers, including myself. It'll be in English, if that's okay for everyone. We don't have the interpreters. So we'll be moving forward in English. And to open up the session, I'd like to ask Ms. Gergana Grozdanova. Yeah? Okay, sorry. To come up and introduce. She's from the Ministry of Innovation and Growth, and you're going to tell us a bit about the dataspaces program in the ministry. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Dear Professor Ilieva, dear guests, I am impressed by the scale of the innovation ecosystem that you and your team have built in just 5 years at the Big Data for Smart Society Institute, GATE. And that's just the beginning. I am convinced that the future you will establish yourself as a leading European hub for big data and artificial intelligence, as well as a competitive research and innovation ecosystem. We live in a dynamic and rapidly evolving and changing environment. Innovation and research are the necessary momentum that will enhance Bulgaria's competitiveness through the development of dynamic, productive, and knowledge-based sectors. Sectors intensive in research, development, and innovation, as undoubtedly in the IT sector, have the highest potential to contribute the rapid pace of economic development of our country. It is no coincidence that the innovation strategy for smart specialization 2021-2027 recognized as one of the key priorities for the smart development of Bulgaria, specifically the information technologies as one of the fastest growing segment of the economy. The development and widespread deployment of breakthrough digital technology is a key driver of innovation and productivity growth throughout the economy and enabler of the green transition in industry, transport, and infrastructure. For instance, the collection and processing of big data based on artificial intelligence can enable faster scientific discovery and more accurate research. It can boost productivity and transform business models in industry through applications such as improved human-robot collaboration, customized product on demand, predictive maintenance, quality control, and improved supply chain management. I use this forum to draw your attention on the Research, Innovation and Digitalization for Smart Transformation Program 2021-2027, which is managed by the Ministry of Innovation and Growth. Our program is consistent with the objectives of the European Research Area and the European Innovation Agenda to create a single European market for research, innovation, deep tech innovation and technology, investment in research and innovation, and enhancing synergies between universities, research organizations, businesses, and other actors in the innovation process. It is also relevant to the European Pact for Research and Innovation and recognize the European priorities related to the Green Deal. Research, Innovation and Digitalization Program is the only national program providing a synergy approach with the Horizon Europe framework program. Our program will continue to support the established centers of excellence and competence center as well as the GATE Institute in their path to development and validation as modern innovation ecosystem, a bridge between the scientific community and industry, as well as a trusted partner of government, industry, academia, and public organization in the area of artificial intelligence and smart decision-making models. The program has a very strong focus on the digital transformation in the public sector, which is an essential prerequisite for effective and efficient interaction between citizens, business, scientific organization, NGO, and administration, with a view to realizing a data-driven economy and governance and a rapid transition to the digital society. We rely on the support of GATE Institute as well as other centers of excellence and competence in this area of information and communication technology to successfully achieve this ambitious goal. I wish every success to the engine of the GATE model, Professor Silvia Lieva, and to her team of motivated professionals who are behind the successful realization of this large-scale project.
Gergana, thank you very much. I'm sure that it's really important to have the ministry's support in this important project. We're going to move forward in the best of ways and the best of innovation. We're going to use internet, and we're going to see if we can beam in our colleague, Professor Ed Curry from the Insight Center of Excellence in Galway University. He's he's the vice president of the Big Data Value Association and on the board of directors there. Ed, can you tell us a little bit about the importance of big data and the data economy?
That's great. Thanks very much, Richard, and a warm hello to everybody today in Sofia. I would love to be there, but unfortunately, the travel constraints didn't allow me to be there. But it's a really special day to see the GATE team and Sylvia and everyone coming into their new building, and really this being kind of fruition of the hard work that they put in for the last 5 years. So Richard, thanks for the question. What I'm going to do is maybe do a short presentation for about 10 minutes, just to kind of highlight some of the opportunities that I think exist in the area of data and AI, particularly looking at what kind of benefits and opportunities exist for the GATE team and also for Bulgaria in general. Can I just confirm there that you can see my slides?
Yeah, we can see you there.
That's fantastic. So basically, what Sylvia asked me to do was to talk about, AI, data spaces, the things that GATE are doing, and the challenges and opportunities that come with that, which kind of sets the scene, I think, for the opportunity for them there. So the room, I'm sure, has heard of generative AI, but it's very interesting to look at this as a new kind of emerging area, what the opportunity is with it. And when we look at generative AI, there's still some discussion about what it is in terms of the formal definition, but I've taken a kind of a consensus-based approach to the definition from Wikipedia here, which talks about artificial intelligence that's capable of generating text, images, or other media using generative models. And basically what generative AI is doing is it's actually looking at the training data and then basically identifying patterns in that can then be used to generate new types of data. So this is kind of the technology that's behind things such as ChatGPT, DALL-E, and Grok. These are all of these new types of tools. What's very interesting about this is that there's a lot of challenges associated with generative AI and the opportunity that it gives. And when we look at it from an AI point of view and for general AI, one of the big challenges is the lack of data that's available. So this is a recent survey that was taken of organizations to understand, do they have the right data, the right quality of data when they're trying to access and build AI systems? But what they say is definitely this is a barrier that we're facing. As they say, you can see there 92% of organizations are saying, yes, we lack data to be able to create AI and generative AI systems. At the same time, what we see is that the type of data that's been created is moving very much into the multimodal space as well. It's not just looking at text, but rather the opportunity exists in the area of trying to work with visual data, imaging from medical domain, and also cameras and video from kind of smart cities, very much in the area of what Gate is doing with their partnerships as well. And the challenge here is how do we process this data? So ChatGPT and GPT-4 has started to move into this multimodal space, but there's massive challenge we've been able to tackle this from a generative AI point of view. The other challenge that we have with this type of data is looking at the subjectivity that exists with it. Much of the data that we create now and much of the data that we see from generative AI is very much more the human level type of data. So subjectivity becomes quite important. Different people can have different perspectives of the world, equally valid, equally true from their perspective, but it's the way that a clinician, for example, an oncologist that looks at cancer sees, diagnosis around the cancer space, or if you look at hematology, you have people that look at it from a blood point of view. So when you look at the world that we have and the data that we're creating, we're getting lots and lots of subjective data. And this is a challenge for us to be able to deal with as well, particularly when you start trying to query and to search that data. So here's a good example here where you have subjective queries, where you might look for a reasonably priced hotel in London or in Sofia, and what's reasonably priced to me could be very different to what's reasonably priced for Elon Musk. So looking at that personalization, looking at subjectivity, and how do we build that into our systems as well. And this is the key challenge that we have. We also have significant issues around copyright and consent. And if you've been following the news lately, you'll see that OpenAI is actually in not one, but two, but actually 3 different class action suits from copyright owners that are basically claiming to have copyright infringement on their material, whether it's text from authors or artists and images. So this is a real challenge, so much so to the point that OpenAI has started to say that they will cover the legal costs of any of its users that are actually facing copyright claims from copyright owners. So this is quite significant because it's clearly showing a challenge around generative AI technologies, and that because we don't understand what the copyright ownership of the training data is, or we're not respecting that, there's challenges around the tools and the technologies that we build there as well. So when we look at these challenges, there's lots of things that we can do to be able to exploit these, and particularly in Gate, I think they're active in all of these areas, and I think each of those are areas where they can actually progress. So in terms of generative AI, I would say that generative AI and foundation models will be the killer app that we have for data spaces. When we look at the technologies that have actually truly pushed computing forward, things like VisiCal for the original Apple computers, things like Microsoft Word for the kind of Windows Intel machines, Netscape and the web, that was really the killer app for the internet, network technologies. And then finally, when you look at the mobile space, what really changed the mobile space was the App Store, the availability of these apps to do things. Those are the really game changers that really push the technology adoption forward. When we look at data spaces and all the work that's happening there, I think generative AI and foundational AI models will be that killer app for data spaces. So there's a massive opportunity here, and Gate is very, very well positioned to be able to exploit that with its partnerships in the area of data spaces and also its work on AI and data analytics. What's interesting here is when we look at the challenges that we talked about before in terms of the availability of data, we know that the Common European Dataspaces from the Commission is very much kind of giving us a platform to be able to build these dataspaces. We have the Data Act, we have the Digital Euro program, which is putting those Common European Dataspaces in place. We have the Dataspaces Support Center, which GATE is a partner in, that actually will try to identify the best practices to ensure that we actually deliver those dataspaces. And what dataspaces will give us will be the platform for the data availability to then be able to generate and create foundational and generative AI models. And at the same time, in the AI space, we have our AI Act that is now giving us a legal framework to be able to work and to be able to use AI systems, and looking at the different styles of systems that we have from high risk to low risk. And we also have the European Partnership on AI Data and Robotics. So from a landscape point of view, I think we have these two critical pillars where GATE is heavily involved. And if we look at trying to bring these together, looking at the benefit that dataspaces can give us, so they can give us training data to be able to drive our foundational and generative AI models. But not only the data, they're also giving us the legal framework to be able to do that. So they're going to give us high quality data. They'll give us a community of users, of stakeholders around that data that are interested in working with that data within the sectors. And they'll also give us a clear data governance and compliance framework so that we can avoid some of those legal issues and we actually have access to high quality data to be able to create those models. At the same time, generative AI models will give us the tools to be able and the models to be able to enable and to extract value from those data spaces as well. And this means faster innovation cycles around our data. By being able to use generative AI models, we'll be able to identify those patterns and be able to extract them much quicker than we can actually do today. And they can also support the creation of synthetic data to enable and to improve those data spaces as well. So there's very much a symbiotic, virtuous cycle between both of these technologies. And I think that's a real opportunity that we get to look at. And what that really means is that when we look at the life cycle that we have for our data spaces, and this is a typical one that we have here from the literature, we can then augment that with basically the life cycle around AI and AI ops. So what we need to start looking at is how do we bring both of these worlds together? How do we have a common life cycle between our data spaces and what our foundational generative AI models are doing? And by bringing those together, I believe we can actually tap into that opportunity that exists there. And what that really means is that we'll not only be looking at data intensive approaches, but also looking at knowledge intensive approaches as well. How do we analyze all the data that exists within the data space, but also leveraging technologies like knowledge graph and semantics to be able to have higher quality, more reliable systems. And again, GATE has a lot of work in both of these areas, which I think positions it very well to be able to contribute to the design and implementation of these systems. And really that's where there's a lot of research opportunities for organizations in both industry and academic organizations to be able to look at these hybrid neurosymbolic approaches. And this is an example of a very recent paper that's looking at the different ways of how do we build these modern generative AI systems, these knowledge-driven systems. And I guess what I'm really pointing out here is this is really at the forefront of the design of AI-enabled systems and how we build those. So this is really the avant-garde kind of research opportunities that exist. And then finally, I think what we'll see is a fundamental change in the paradigm for how we interact with data. So some of the older people in the room might recognize this diagram here on the left. This is Yahoo. So in 1995, this was the center of the internet revolution. Yahoo was the first directory that basically allowed you to go and to be able to find information on the web. It was designed for a time when there was 100,000 websites, and it gave us those exact high quality results. As time moved on, 3 years later, suddenly we had Google came on the scene, and Google had to operate at a much higher scale than Yahoo. So it went from 100,000 websites to 2.5 million websites. And the beauty of Google was that you could enter keywords and you'd get back search results. Now those search results are approximate. They're not as exact that existed with Yahoo, but they gave a very, very positive user experience. And really this kind of changed the way that people interacted with the web. Fast forward a decade or so on from that, what we found is that the scale of websites that we were dealing with had moved from 2.5 million websites right up to 700 million websites. And looking for websites became less important than actually looking for answers. People would type questions into Google and look to get answers directly from Google. And Google responded to that by creating these knowledge graphs, these knowledge panes, so that rather than just getting the website links, you'd also get highly curated, accurate data that will come with that as well. And that was a real change in how we've interacted. And I believe today we're on the tipping point of actually a new way of being able to interact with our data when we start looking at ChatGPT and imagining ChatGPT as the very first iterations of a new conversation or a new way of interacting with data. Today, the web has about 2 billion web pages. We're not necessarily looking for answers anymore, but maybe what we're actually looking for is content, things to be created. So rather than asking for information that you'd use to create a report, you'll actually work with your AI assistant to be able to write that report in a collaborative way, possibly through the role of conversation. So I think this is a really, really exciting and interesting time for us. And these are significant opportunities that GATE is perfectly positioned in terms of expertise in data spaces, having that local ecosystem in Sofia, connected at the European level into all of the strategic initiatives in the space, and at the same time doing the work in the area of AI, data analytics, to be able to position itself to be able to create these new types of interaction paradigms. And that's basically it for me, Richard. Just going to give a quick overview of what's happening. And again, delighted to be part of the panel today.
Thank you very much, Ed. It's so pertinent what you're saying, and the importance of data to the AI systems. I'll be talking a little bit about the volume and the value of data, but you should know that in IDC we build pretty sophisticated models to predict the growth of the data economy. And for the last 4 or 5 years, we have provided models that are based on a probable scenario, but also on a stressed scenario or on a very aggressive scenario. And we have a number of different factors that build into that, and one of which is technology. And we put the AI high on the horizon of that measurement but every year we find that the needs for data and the consumption of data by the LLM, the large language model training, and the foundational model, and et cetera, are breaking our model. They're always more than we actually expected, already knowing about it from the year before. So that it's just really super important for what GATE is doing, and your presentation is spot on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
And now, after having introduced myself, I'll tell you a little bit more about the market for data and the data economy. My name is Richard Stevens. I'm the director of research, and I'm responsible for the group that's doing the data market study for the European Commission, and we're monitoring and assessing the growth of data and data monetization in the EU and globally. So what I'm going to try and tell you today is why GATE, why Professor Leva, why this building, why the research agenda that's happening here are so important. Essentially, what I'm going to try and tell you is that what they're doing here is the right investment at the right time. Essentially, that's because big data and AI, as we heard from Ed, are becoming so economically important. And what I would say, and I think you've probably heard the expression, data is the new oil. I think that's kind of stupid. But what I would say is that data is better than bread. Okay, well, I'll explain that as I go forward. Data is better than bread. You know, sometimes they've got good bread in Bulgaria, but it's more important than bread in Bulgaria and across Europe. What is important about data is that it's becoming such a predominant factor in the economy. If you look at data, at the value of data, we can look at the data itself, or we can look at the whole data economy. So I come from a data company. IDC buys and sells and trades data. But we are also, we have also companies that sell us computer hardware to do analysis and things like that. We have cleaning companies that come and clean our premises. The economy around data is actually the effect of all this backward impact that happens because of the data economy. And the data economy, and this is interesting, is already at 544 billion euros in Europe. Right? That's a big, big number. And we expect that already to become 650-ish by 2025, just in 2 years. That means that the data and the data economy is almost 3.5% of total GDP. Right? And if we look at just the part of data, right? Buying and selling, exchanging, monetizing data. What we see is something very interesting. We see that if I look at 2020, the value of what we would call the data market, or the exchange, buying and selling data, was about 64 billion euros in Europe. In 2021, it was already 73. And this year, we're about to close the data, but we know it's already going to be around 86 billion euros. What does that mean? It means two things. First of all, we can assume from that trend that it will continue, if not increase the rate of growth. And that's somewhere around 12% compound annual growth rate. Not sure if any of you are mathematicians, but you can quickly see what happens to a number that has that high of a growth rate. And it means another thing. It means that it's for the economy in Europe, it's about 1.7% of GDP. You know what agriculture is worth in Europe? About 1.6%. So, data is more important than bread. All right, well, you can't really eat data, but AI systems can. But the question is, so now what? So now here in GATE and in places like BDVA, where Ed comes from, and Insight, we're talking a lot about dataspaces. And do all of you know what dataspaces are? Is there anyone who doesn't really know what dataspaces are? Okay. Dataspaces are, I guess if I had to give some kind of definition, it's a secure ecosystem where people can exchange data, right? And so that kind of means it's nothing very specific. And first of all, it's nothing new. We've been exchanging and trading data since the 70s, right? And so the question is, why set up a program in Europe for making data spaces? And why is it important to Europe, right? If we've already been doing this for so long. To think about this, we have to take a step back and look at how Europe is and how it's different than the rest of the world, and how we can maximize this trend of data is better than bread, right? How we can make Europe the beneficiary of this. So you probably know of Copernicus. This is the Earth observation program. They've launched a number of satellites. The Sentinel satellite network for a number of different Earth observation things. Let's say you are a small and medium enterprise, of which Europe is really rich, and you want to use that kind of data. Well, what do you know about small and medium enterprises? There's somewhere around 24 million of them in Europe. Their average size is something like 10 people. What do you know about a 10-person company? There's one guy running it. There's normally one guy who's responsible for IT, right? Or two guys, or maybe even a small office. But they're probably not experts already on like big data and big data analytics, or how to acquire a data set from the Sentinel program, or from ECWF, the medium range weather forecasting people. Those are all public data sets, but this small and medium enterprise might not have the right competencies to do that, right? And what do they do? Well, you might also know of a company called Amazon. They have the Amazon Data Marketplace, and the European Space Agency and the Copernicus program have provided all of the data sets to Amazon Data Marketplace free of charge, right? And they have the obligation to give them to the small and medium enterprises free of charge, right? But still, these people don't know what to do with the data. They might not know about security envelopes for transferring data. They might not know about transfer protocols. They might not know about negotiation and contracting with something like, but Amazon Data Marketplace does it all for you. Pull out a credit card, click, and you can get any data set that you really need, especially the ones that Ed was talking about before for training your AI system. But those ones aren't free, right? And even if they are free, all of those value-added services are not, right? You have to pay for those as a SME. What we really need are that type of information on how to manage contracting, pricing, how to ensure that the governance rules for the use of data are widely distributed and known, how to actually have a secure environment to exchange information without actually going to Amazon or Snowflake or et cetera, and leaving your credit card. Because you're an SME, you want to make money off those services. You want to be providing those services in the future, right? And there comes dataspaces. They're making these large data sets that we have available in Europe, available also to SMEs and any other player, to increase that value that I was talking about, that bread for for Europeans rather than for Americans. And the last thing you might want to know is that the volume of data in Europe that we have available, the number of companies that are considered data companies are both growing between 13 and 15%. But the compound growth rate of the revenue we're taking is only at 11%. And you're saying, well, how can that happen? Amazon and Snowflake and these guys, they're taking 4% of our European revenue. So what we need to do is make a system whereby Europeans have access and better use and leverage of their own data. And that's where I think organizations like GATE, the University of Sofia, and these types of programs are really the right thing at the right time. No? All right, that's about all I wanted to say, and we're going to build on that right now with Professor Ilieva, who is going to tell us a little bit more about how GATE is leveraging this paradigm.
Thank you, Richard. Maybe go there. Thank you. Thank you for this introduction to data spaces to the audience. It is a very complicated topic, and there is no opinion, the same opinion on different people. So the terminology is very different. Yeah, I will talk about the data spaces in the context of Bulgaria and what GATE is doing. So maybe refer to this microphone. Thank you. Yeah, at European level, yeah, the European Commission defined different verticals where the data spaces are important: health, manufacturing, QC, mobility, transport, energy, and yeah, environment, agriculture. So in these verticals, in all verticals, the data are important. As Ed mentioned, we need high quality data from different sectors and from citizens, which after that they will be part of this ecosystem for data sharing, and we are following the standards and interoperability in order to create new services, new innovations. And data governance is very important. What are the rules for access, for use data? And so we're following these recommendations at European level. In different countries, they're creating data spaces in different verticals, and each country defines their priorities. So in Bulgaria, still the priorities are not defined, are not clear. We heard from the Ministry of Innovation and Growth. They're responsible for such national program, but they have to define what are the priorities at national level. And we, as a GATE, we are a member of a Big Data Value Association, also from International Data Space Association. And International Data Space Association has a radar for all the data spaces and initiatives in Europe. And we are positioned there with our urban data space, which we initiated last year. So we are already in the radar of, at European level. And related to the data space topic, what are the projects we are currently running and we are active in different domains in order to prepare Bulgaria to be active in this field and to be competitive at European level. As also Richard and Ed, the organizations, they are a member of Data Space Support Center. Even GATE is associate partner. We are participating in the meetings in defining the rules and the blueprint, how to implement the data space at European level and in each country, in each domain. Just last month, we started the European Mobility Data Space Deployment Project, which is a big European project with 40 participants. Later on, I will speak a little bit more about this, and we are there with other Bulgarian partners to implement, to really deploy this data space in Bulgaria. The other projects we are currently running, the VELES project, which is in our way towards Smart Health Data Space Excellence Hub, where our partners from Chalmers, from CAT, are also there. And this is the regional data space from Bulgaria, Romania, Cyprus, and Greece. It started in June. And tomorrow in the session for digital health, we'll hear more about this data space and our way towards this. And there we identify that the more important are the problems about legal issues, about governance of this data, about sensitivity of this data. So a lot of such things in regulations and national level, which we need to have in mind. And we're considering and exploring in this project. The diversity project is another one related to the data spaces, but about the biodiversities in seas and ocean. And in this project, we are responsible for management of data, for collecting and preparing data for further analysis, and we would like to use the data space standards and rules in order to implement this. And it's again a big European project. In fact, it's something curious about this. We get 15 out of 15 points at the evaluation, and even though we were in the reserve list and we started later, and it is the first time in our experience in European projects to catch such scores, and even though nevertheless we started this project. And the final one is the project, which again we started in the beginning of this year, about the data spaces in cultural heritage, where the aim of this project, which we are coordinating, is to create a data space and competence in the cultural heritage, such a unit within GATE dealing with this topic. So you see, we are covering different verticals in order to prepare Bulgaria for this technology, to how to implement, how to use it. And what about our urban data space in Bulgaria, which we initiated last year? This is a picture of the ceremony in the big hall in the city center, where together with Lars Negil, who is from International Dataspace Association, and other people, and also Ed was speaker at this event, we initiated this, and at that point 15 partners joined this data space. And they're ready to implement the technologies, they're ready to provide data and to use data for different services. And where we are now with the implementation of this urban data space, you see this is the picture from International Dataspace Association, but we already implemented some of the main components which build this minimum viable product which is running. And just last month we entered this certification of IDS connector. We are in this process, we're at the end of this process. We passed some of the tests, and soon we expect the certification about this. And this is ready for offering it as a service, having our building, our infrastructure to other SME startups and other companies which don't have resources to implement and knowledge to implement, to try to test and to decide about further implementation and joining. And this is related to our city digital twin, the area where we are working in a future cities group domain in GATE, as you know about digital twin. And tomorrow in the session, in the first session in the morning, it is the main topic is digital twin of Sofia. And after that, there will be a workshop the whole day on this topic. And how important is the data space for the digital twins? We are following these technologies and standards in order to implement and to rely on this trust, transparency, sovereignty, which the ecosystem of data spaces is ensuring. And one example about what we are doing in this field, one scenario where we integrated data from different stakeholders, from National Statistical Institute, from municipalities, from other sources of data which they shared in order to identify for example, in this case, the kindergartens which are in 15 minutes distance from each of the children in the city. And based on this data and this sharing of data, we identified where is the best place for new kindergartens and what is the demand of kindergartens in the city. So as it is in line with the societal challenges which we are addressing in GATE in general, and there are some other use cases. It could be applied for other infrastructures and for other topics in problems within the city. It depends again on the availability of data, and yeah, then it will become the problem when we have more data, how we will use them. And this is again the other use case about within the project which we started about the European mobility data space deployment, where I mentioned that there are 40 partners, and you see the cities which will implement, which will deploy different scenarios related to the mobility, and Sofia is one of these cities. Barcelona, Budapest, Lisbon, Milan, you see other cities, and we're having technology partners. Fraunhofer is our technology partner, one of our technology partners which will provide the technologies, and also there are other partners which will help us in this, the deployment of the technologies, but not only the technologies. Our use case there is about the integrated service, mobility service in the city, where we use green transport, about e-bikes, about e-scooters, about other means of transportation. So the people not to use the cars, but use the green ways to move in the city. And this project, the duration of this project is 4 years, so it's not easy task, but with the help of such experienced partners in this project, we hope that soon we will have some results. So in general, what are the opportunities and benefits first for the citizens? When you're moving in this and using such services, it's increased in health. So you're more healthier if you are walking or using e-bikes, not sitting in the car on the traffic jam and be nervous. So it's better community and livability, so you have more time to meet people and to enjoy the life and have the infrastructure close to you. So it's in general improved quality of life. And yes, about the city, the costs in the city are reduced because of infrastructure maintenance and lower environmental damages, so the pollution is less. So these data-driven decisions within the city to improve the quality of life. And about the mobility, so using this data and these technologies, we may define the optimal locations, for example, for bus stops and other infrastructure, and this multimodal transportation planning, which will be useful for faster movement of the citizens. And finally, for the business, so it's for the business, they may use where to put their offices, where to open new shops, or other such decisions which will have this economic aspect in the cities. And for the data spaces, and especially for the urban data space, what could be the benefits for the participants in the data space? So they may share costs, their general benefits. As Richard mentioned, some companies, they could not afford to implement this and to have access of data or to analyze data. So if they share data with different other companies, they may share costs and take benefits of the analysis of those data. Joint innovation, so though no single ecosystem member has the access to all necessary data, so if you share data from different sources, you may have a new services or new innovations based on this data which you didn't think about before. Also, it could be for greater common good. So we have some general problems which we may address sharing data like climate protection, like pandemics. So those are the general problems which we may address with the data spaces, and we all will have benefits. About the shared marketplace, also we mentioned about this, that ecosystem members can provide this quality assured, easy access data for a domain where they have common interests. So those with the stars are the possible benefits for Bulgarian companies, for Bulgaria, if they're participating in this urban data space. So it's, yeah, this is important for the whole ecosystem, as data space is the whole ecosystem, where some companies may test before invest, before they decide if they want to share data, what kind of data will share, what will be the rules, how to use them, and also based on this shared data, developers and other companies may create new applications, new services, and new innovations. So this is both the benefits for data suppliers and data users. And what are the next steps in the field of data spaces and our activities? First is integration at European level. So that's one of our goals, to be European-wide and to extend the ecosystem, to have the expertise in the field, to provide some trainings to other companies and stakeholders, and to use this technology, and offer as a testbed for others. So that's our, yeah, again, that's we are for cooperation in order to get innovations and to go further together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really interesting, though, that you're involved in a number of data spaces. And for example, in IDC, we're involved in 5 data spaces, and none of them are overlapping. But I wonder how much they are overlapping. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of least common denominator of all of these data spaces. And it'd be interesting to figure out, you know, some things like TCP/IP. You're not going to not use that in any data space. So it will be interesting as we move forward to have a discussion in areas like the BDVA, the Big Data Value Association, and the Data Space Support Center, in ADRA, as Ed was talking about, to see where we can find a commonality in this area. I'd like to move forward with this same discussion, and I'd like to introduce you to someone new, Jan Bosch. Now, you've already met Jan. Jan is from Chalmers. And yeah, Jan, so tell us a little bit more about your connection to this topic.
Good, I will, but I won't talk about data spaces. Is that okay? Okay, he looks disappointed. The rest looks relieved. I don't know how to interpret this. How are you all? How do you think this interactive panel is working out for you so far? Yeah? Sorry, this is Dutch diplomacy, you know, Dutch humor. I wanted to spend a few minutes on data AI, and I already started to innovate on the word innovation. Apologies for the spelling. I do have to stress that this is a little bit of my view in the context in which I work. There are some Chalmers representatives like Graham here, Bastiaan there, who are working much closer on data space and related topics. And if you want to know more about that, go and talk to them. You know, I typically try to talk about things I actually know something about, which is like my own stuff. So just to keep it short, I have 22 slides. Just telling, I have 3 thoughts that I want to share with you. The first one, why do we talk so much about software data and AI? And what I do think is critically important is that it allows for a fundamentally new way of value delivering to customers. Software data and AI and this whole notion of digitalization is not a technology problem. It is a business challenge. It's a new way of getting value out to customers. That's what I think is really important, and that's why I believe collaboration between academia and industry is so important. Second thought. I believe, because many people, I started my programming career on a ZX81. Does anyone remember the ZX81? I am too old, at least Graham knows it. I'm probably older than all of you combined. But in any case, the ZX81 was a 1 kilobyte computer where every key had 6 different functions, or maybe even 7, depending on the key combination that you use. And if you compare to where we are today to where we started, it looks like, holy cow, we've come a far way, right? I believe we've barely started to scratch the surface of what data and artificial intelligence will do to society. Yeah, and it's very important to understand that this is not, oh, we're in the final sprint. No, we haven't even started the warm-up for the marathon. At least that's what I want to leave you with. And then the final challenge, and this is a controversial one in academic circles. Last year, from the data that I was able to find, more than 7 million papers were published. Out of those 7 million papers, less than 2 million received more than 5 citations. You still with me? Yeah? So that means that most papers, they get published, but no one gives a flying hoot. Yeah, so it doesn't have any impact on society and on making the world a better place. Of all the papers that get published, they don't get used very much by industry. Industry has an innovation absorptive capacity limitation, and that's why I believe, and one of the reasons why I think GATE is so important, is that the role of research is not just to generate new knowledge and put it in a paper, it is also to support and accelerate the adoption of widespread deployment of digital technologies in society for the betterment of humankind. Because writing something up in a paper doesn't help anyone if those ideas are not actually used in practice. And this sounds obvious, but I see it being discussed so extremely seldomly in academic circles. Our job is to consume taxpayers' money, which we're really good at, not just because it's nice to have a salary. I like my salary, so I suppose you like yours too, but we have, I believe, a moral and ethical obligation to use that to actually make the world a better place. Yeah, I hope I didn't say anything that rubs you the wrong way. I think it's pretty obvious. So very briefly about me, I used to be a young and innocent professor of software engineering. Then I got a real job. I worked in industry, yeah, which most people consider to be a real job. And now I'm, according to my PCs, this is an old, grumpy, and cynical professor of software engineering. I run something called Software Center. This is my center. It's not a very big center, but it's mine, and I like it. Yeah, so it's 16 companies and 5 universities, all around digitalization. I have way too many slides. The essence is, I think that the essence of digitalization and why all this stuff about software, data, and AI is so important is because we're going from the model on the left. You buy a car, every day you use the car, it gets a little bit worse until you're so sick and tired of the car that you buy the next one. The next one is a little bit better than the previous one. Yeah, the model that we're moving towards is that every product that has a microchip in it will get to the model where it gets better every day it gets used by customers. And how does it get better? It gets better because we push new software into it, we push new machine learning models into it, we maybe periodically upgrade the electronics in the product, and we occasionally replace mechanics if necessary. But the idea basically is you have a constantly improving user experience, which is all driven by data and artificial intelligence, because that data gives us the insights in how customers actually want to use the product. And the machine learning models basically allow us to adjust the behavior of the product to what the system does in practice. I'm going to skip over this slide. Nice colors, don't you agree? So I'm going to hop over that one too. Here is one of the other interesting things that I find fascinating. I'm a professor of software engineering, and when I started in software engineering, the idea was your responsibility starts with the requirement specification. You all remember that? You get a spec, you build what it says in the spec, and if you've built what it said in the spec, you've done your part and you've delivered value. You still with me? No one talks about the fact that if you actually build it, did you actually deliver value to customers? And the answer is probably not, or at least not as much as you thought. Research shows, and this is a very old study, 2002, that of all the functions and features in a typical system, around 2/3 of them are never used or used so seldomly that they shouldn't have been built. How does that make you feel? Yeah, and we did this. We repeated this for a company in Gothenburg who wanted to stay anonymous after they saw the data. Yeah, this is all the features on the x-axis, on the y-axis, all the features and the frequency of use, right? And what we see is the same pattern. Some features are used all the time, some features are used occasionally. Many features are never used or hardly ever used in practice. So when I wear my consulting hat, I also do some angel investing and some consulting. I walk into a company and say, half of your R&D budget is waste. You just don't know which half. But I can help. It's a pretty good sales pitch, I feel. And it has worked really well so far. Yeah, so this is some of the thoughts where we work with data, value modeling, basically measuring whether, using data, whether we are delivering value to customers. We do this, for instance, with Volvo Cars, where we try to get them to talk about what is the value of adaptive cruise control. You all know adaptive cruise control in the car, right? You have radar, you have lane keeping, car takes care of itself. Well, it turns out it's very hard for people that even built that function to describe what the value of an adaptive cruise control system is. So how do you use data if you want to do this? If you don't even know what you're optimizing for, which is one of the challenges that many companies in industry are talking about. And I had a lovely chat with a few people in the back earlier today where we talked about this. So that was a very good one. How do we get good at data? This is a model that we haven't published yet, so don't steal it because I'm in the midst of writing a paper on it. Yeah, but basically what we're doing is we see that companies start with ad hoc use of data. I only use data if it matches, if it serves my purpose. And if the data doesn't say what I want it to say, I don't use it. Yeah, that happens a lot in companies. Then you move to, okay, if we add this feature to the system, what will, oh, everyone is taking pictures. I shouldn't have used this slide. This is a little scary. Clearly, I have to call my co-author after this talk. Then you go to feature impact prediction, then you go to product instrumentation where you measure how often are certain features used, the thing that I just showed you. Then you go to product value modeling, and then you go to hierarchical value modeling. And then you can get to a stage where, for instance, people at Booking, when I worked with them in 2016, 2017, a team in Booking will never see a requirement in its life. They will basically get charged with improve this KPI for your part of the system, and you, dear R&D team, figure out how to actually go about that. And that then is the final stage, which is the hierarchical value model. How much time do you want me to use?
Yeah, another 2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes. Okay, next slide. Sorry, no. AI is kind of sort of an important thing. Do we all agree on that, I think? Here's the interesting thing. Everyone and their brother thinks that it is about machine learning models and training them. Our experience shows that that's the easy part. If you talk to the companies, it is all the stuff around it that is difficult. And that's what we call AI engineering. I cannot remember. Yeah, this is a very old paper. It's like 100 internet years old, 2015, before many of you were born. No, I'm not sure. But I mean, this was by people from Google, which basically identified that the little black box in the middle is the machine learning code. And then everything else around it is what you need to make that little machine learning model actually do its job. Yeah, and that's what we see is one of the key challenges of deploying machine learning in a reliable, safe, and predictable fashion in many systems. And that's one of the things that, again, I feel that very few people are actually talking about. I mean, everyone and their brother is in love with the LLMs, yeah, the large language models and generative AI. But, you know, in order to make use of those things in an industrial context and create business value and society value out of it, we need a whole bunch of this stuff around it as well, which I think is important, and that's what some of the things that we're looking at. Yeah, so everyone wants to train models and evaluate them, whereas in practice it is, where do I get high quality data? Of course, the dataspaces are an answer to that, but also how do I deploy in a safe and secure fashion? That's the hard part. I mean, I work with companies in autonomous driving, for instance. They have quality requirements that go to the defect density or the model doing the wrong or the car doing the wrong thing cannot exceed once in every 10 to the 9 hours of driving. Yeah, those are the safety requirements we're talking about. Yeah, that's not done by training a cute little model. That is with all the stuff in the last stage of the deployment. Yeah, so I'm gonna skip over this because I think I'm starting to run out of time. We have a beautiful research agenda because I do research. I am a professor. I live in an ivory tower and I look out over the poor peasants in the field. Not sure how that went. But we have a research agenda that if you're interested in it, I happily send to you, and otherwise you can download it if you have access to that. And with that, I want to get to conclusion. Yeah, so the idea basically is that digitalization is kind of sort of important, not because of the technology, but because it is a new way of delivering value to customers. Yeah, the way that your SaaS models work, where your Facebook gets better and your booking gets better and your Skyscanner gets better and Flight Radar gets better, that will apply to all products. Also cars, mobile phones, computers, medical imaging equipment, everything will become like that. We've barely started to scratch the surface. That's why I'm so incredibly happy that GATE exists, because GATE is going to save all of us, right, Sylvia? And then finally, the role of research is not just about creating new knowledge, but also making sure that that knowledge is actually used and deployed in society, because only when new knowledge is actually used do we get the benefits for humankind that accompanies the creation of new knowledge. Yeah? If it sits in a paper and no one reads it, it actually doesn't have any impact. And I prefer having impact. And with that, I write books, don't do that. And don't read them. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will give the floor back to Richard.
Thank you. Excellent, excellent, Jan. Really inspiring. I'm really quite interested in the three topics you're talking about, and I think we should probably have a group discussion about this at lunchtime. And like the panel, we could all sit up here. They'll get everyone, or we could just turn the camera around, and I'll sit out there. But I'm wondering if things like digitalization and the progression towards a more inclusive user involving experience that you were talking about, being one product is always more inclusive or engaging than the last one in cover. Is that following some kind of Moore's law? Is that more or less, have you figured out how that is? We'll maybe talk about that on the panel a little bit later. And also, you were talking about the features. I was a software engineer for a long time. I won't talk about it. It's probably true. It's probably true that those features are not used for by the client. However, what I know as a software developer is that 100% of the requirements were paid for. So, I mean, that's what your job is, kind of, as a software developer. It's not, you don't really care if they're going to use it. It was your job. It was your job. And that's why I don't do it anymore. We're going to move forward, and we're going to go back to the power of the internet and bring in our final speaker in this session. You're here. Wow. I've seen good internet before, but... I'm not here. It's virtual. All right. I'm actually going to ask Ms. Paolo Cesarini, who's from the European Digital Media Observatory. Did I get that right? DEMA. And you're going to tell us a little bit about, I guess it would be like echo chambers, fake news, these types of things, and their impact on the data universe and the work they're doing here in Gates. So, Paolo, thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will not use slides, actually, so I will perhaps place myself here so from time to time I can look my telephone where I have a couple of notes. Okay, good. And I will now take you in a different area of where AI actually is connected with a specific type of challenges for societies. It is the world of the fake news and disinformation, and how the technologies that are at place in the digital space actually gradually contributed to increase the risks and that society, our democracies actually, are facing in this period. So I'm very much happy that Silvia has invited me here. I'm very, very happy to be the host speaker for GATE. GATE is, it's a huge house. It's a house in construction, but is is a huge house with many, many different verticals in it. And one of these verticals is that actually hosts Broad. Is the one national hub covering Bulgaria and Romania. One national hub that cooperates within a larger network that constitutes the EDMO family, the European Digital Media Observatory family, which I'm happy to have conceived when I was still at the Commission as leading the team that started the work around disinformation, under the supervision of Maria Gabriel, who was our host this morning, and then continuing now as a director of EDMO from the ground, from the other side, and no longer as a commission official. I'd like to remind as a starting point that when we talk about disinformation, we have the tendency to think about what is false, what is untrue. What is true and what is credible as two kind of opposing terms in a discussion that is revolving around a risky question, which is about who is then going to establish, who is there that is at the end of the day is going to establish the truth, the final truth. I would like to say that here we are not in a house where, you know, we can host a ministry of truth for the future. Not at all. We are trying to face and to tackle a phenomenon which is much more complex than that. Normally, you have people expert in this field. They use the reference to the ABCDE model. So A stands for actors, B stands for behavior, C stands for content, D stands for degree, and E stands for effect. So when you talk about disinformation, it's a combination of different factors where content, so what is actually true or verifiably false, it is only one element out of many others. And I would dare to say that looking at the actors and behavior and the degree at which the degree at which a certain narrative, let's put it, a certain content, reach the audience and what impact has the audience is perhaps the most important aspect to look at. To understand the connections between the content and the behavior, so how the content has actually disseminated online, and the degree of dissemination, so what impact this narrative has on audiences, the technologies that are powered by AI plays, of course, a very fundamental role. When we say AI, we refer to different systems, and it's important to distinguish the different things. You have AI-powered systems that enable the manipulation of the online digital media. You know, the very simple example is the creation of fake accounts connected with networks of bots that amplify and spread a certain story across social media, for instance. This is one aspect, but another aspect is the algorithmic amplification of certain stories. So once a story is planted somewhere, the algorithms at work in social media actually amplify it and make the reach even more even wider, depending on the popularity and depending on the predictability of people looking at that particular piece of content and all the rest. So the other aspect is about recommender systems. So AI is also used in recommender system, largely used in social media. That is another aspect. Something that should not be forgotten is the AI that is used in order to monetize the content online. So all the system that determines how advertisements, digital advertisement, is placed on different online resources. That also played a significant role in this B letter, in the behavior letter, you know. And finally, but I would say last but not least, it is the generative AI, which is only the last, and of course a bit of a shocking, a shock wave came in November when ChatGPT was launched, and everybody started to say, yes, that now we are really facing another very important challenge, because with ChatGPT, content can be created, fabricated at scale and distributed online without anybody being able to understand whether that is synthetic or not synthetic content. And if you combine ChatGPT with other techniques like, you know, the use of botnets or fake accounts, you can actually have an exponential use of different AI systems for the same purpose. And that is, of course, is an important challenge. This has prompted and open a bracket. Also, I would like to bring you to a different landing slot, but I need to open a bracket here, which is regulation. So the importance to have a regulatory framework that accompany these innovations and these technological developments in a way that it is possible to imagine a future where technology and ethics goes hand in hand. To a certain extent, the Digital Service Act, which is now in the process of being implemented, has addressed some of the challenges posed by AI-driven systems of media manipulation, like transparency for recommender systems, certain safeguards for large platforms that they use recommender systems, like limitation in terms of user profiling, the use of data for profiling, and therefore for amplifying and targeting content to special vulnerable groups of audiences. That is one example. Transparency in the area of digital advertising, with the creation of repositories, with the obligation to disclose data that concern the reach, the money behind, and the authors of certain sponsored content, and to have that accessible to researchers for further studies. The DSA has created certainly a good number of safeguards around this, the use of these systems, and has also obliged large platforms to have an approach, a transparent approach for tackling systemic risks that their own online services pose to their own users and to society in general. The latest piece of legislation that is now being discussed is the AI Act, of course, and the last week has been quite, I understand, has been quite hectic and complicated with trilogue negotiations hitting the wall for the moment, exactly on the issue of generative AI and how to treat this type of systems. So while there is some agreements regarding foundation models that needs to comply with certain design safeguards, with certain transparency safeguards, there is still doubts regarding the generative AI that are based on this foundational model when it comes to the transparency in the use of input data and to the application of copyrights rules for the input data. To give you an example, the discussion are ongoing. I think it's tomorrow that there will be the final trilogue. It's a little bit of make it or break it situation. We'll see whether the AI will see the day of light under this term, or will be postponed to the next Commission, because we are really at the end of this mandate. This just to tell you one basic message is that, yes, regulation is moving fast. A lot of new legal tools have been adopted or are in the process of being adopted despite all difficulties, but regulation will not do the whole work. If you want to look at the future in a kind of comfortable, if you want to have a comfortable look to the future, more is needed. And what is needed, it is a whole of society approach, meaning that the regulation will it will be difficult for regulation to follow the pace of technological evolutions, and to understand what the new challenge will come, what will be the next challenges. You need to have a system in place that look at specific areas where risks for societies may emerge. This information is certainly, so the media, the information space is certainly one of the areas where risks are clearly in a very fast evolving and need to have a constant monitoring and understanding. That's the reason why EDMO is there to help through an original approach which consists in bringing together actors from different sectors with different disciplines, and across the board, by creating a network which covers the whole Europe, try to foster an approach that try to overcome the difficulties which are inherent to this sector, the sector of AI and new technologies. What is that? What is this about? It's about bringing different professions together. First of all, journalists, certainly, media, certainly, but also researchers and educators, because, as you know, it is the combination of improvement in the media landscape, which is suffering from different problems, including sustainability, resources. Research that looks at the phenomena that have such a complexity in terms of societal impacts that you cannot have only one specific point of view. You need to merge the point of view of psychologists, historians, sociologists, technologists together in order to provide for responses that are future-proof. And thirdly, you need to think about how to build resilience in our societies, because the technology goes faster than regulation, for sure, but the technology goes faster also than what the people can actually absorb in terms of knowledge and preparation for their proper use. So media literacy is becoming a very, very important sector that needs to be merged together with the others. But as Jan was saying before, knowledge is not about creating new papers. I fully agree with you. I think without deployment, the research becomes a little bit of a self-referential exercise. And what I'm happy to see is that the EDMO and its hubs in many different regions and countries in Europe, I've counted at least 10 different hubs that are engaged right now into deployment of research to build tools, to create technologies that actually respond on the ground to the challenges that AI is posing, by using AIs in a positive way. I want to give you a few examples about it. Fact checkers, it is the groundwork. I said the ABCDE model, but of course everything starts by understanding what is out there in the space, in the information space, what are the narratives that are shaping the public opinion. So the first thing is to understand whether what is reported on media, what is said by politicians, what is circulated on social media. It is actually tainted with falsehood or there are fabricated images or videos or audios that are planted into appropriate resources, into critical strategic resources in order to shape public opinion. So fact checkers do the groundwork. That is the first stage. And AI is now, several researchers are building tools for making this very difficult process of checking news in this ocean of news much more efficient. Upstream, for instance, there are tools that would enable fact checkers to early detect what is worthwhile to be checked. And that by using semantic analytical tools. Look at the novelty, looking at the multiplicity, looking at similarity through the extraction of text fragments that may be found here and there in different online resources. You can actually identify at an early stage whether a certain claim is worthwhile the effort of fact-checking. That is time-consuming, that is laborious. Another example is about automatic detection of facts that have already been checked. It seems to be banal, but it's not banal, because journalists are individuals that work very often in their own world, and they don't know what other colleagues are doing. So enabling the real-time check of what has already been fact-checked by others, it is not that trivial. It's quite an important piece of technology that can certainly speed up the process. We are in Europe, third example, we are in Europe in a multilingual, multicultural context. AI can help to have this type of cross-checks across languages, therefore across different informational environments. For the work of fact checkers, AI represents an opportunity. That is what I basically want to say. But it is not only about that. It is about understanding how the online services are actually manipulated. So network analysis cannot be done without appropriate tools. And there is a number of projects that carry out and try to develop tools to have a better view of how the networks are created, inauthentic networks, people that connect with each other with the sole scope to boost certain stories and to spread them through inauthentic and manipulative ways. AI may be essential, and these projects are now progressing towards positive outcomes that will result into deployment, into tools. Another example is about understanding deep fakes, identifying deep fakes. This is an area where several hubs are working in parallel. The question is about how to retrieve media content from the internet, how to identify out of this content what are the synthetic media items that worth further analysis. And the third step is about to identify whether or not this is fabricated for misleading the intended audiences. The work is progressing quite well for videos, for images, also for audio. It's much more challenging for text, but again, it's a matter of time. That shows that research may lead to results if it is pursued in a systematic and coordinated fashion by different actors. And the final example I want to give you is something that is carried out by the Irish hub that looks at sentiment analysis and try to predict through AI what is the likely impact of certain narratives on audiences. That is very important. We talk about disinformation, we are all scared. Yes, it is true. It is scary, and there are indications, suspect that that has been interfering with electoral processes, referendum, and other crises like COVID and anti-vax movements, right? We have this aspect, but nobody is able today to give a measurement about the actual impact on audiences. So what are the audiences that have been the most impacted? So using AI for having a much better understanding of the effects, the letter E in the model, of disinformation is fundamental. So all this to say that AI is a challenge, AI is an opportunity, but in order to harness the opportunities, there is no way that the work can be done in isolation by a center of excellency in competition with other centers of excellency. The resources are scarce. The resources are what they are. We are lucky to benefit from both public and private funding. That is a guarantee also for independence of the work that is done in this space. But at the same time, we need to optimize the outcomes. And to optimize the outcomes, the works that GATE and Broad are doing here has to be connected with the work that other hubs in other parts of Europe are doing, because it is obvious that synergies in this case means faster results and better products at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Paolo. That's a really spot-on presentation, and I really look forward to discussing this as well in the next session. I think it's true that that it is kind of scary sometimes. For example, one of my colleagues was telling me the other day that he seems to be profiled and getting a lot of sexually explicit content in his feeds. And obviously these AI models are doing that. But what's really scary is I've been profiled and I get a lot of cats doing stupid things. All right, that's just kind of a joke. No, but I actually... It
would have been more funny if it had been the other way around.
But of course it is really pertinent, and the whole idea of AI creating deep fakes and the algorithms actually profiling users, targeting perhaps groups of users, energizing them, can have a significant effect. And your ABCDE model is really spot on. And I don't think it's so futuristic. I think that as an American, and I truly believe this, I think we've already seen the effects and the damage that social media can have in something like a presidential election, where we get complete fake news, and the results of which were seen in the 2016 election. But I won't go there. What I will do is I'll go out and have a break, and I'll hope all of you will come too. But before we do that, I'd just like to have one last applause for all of our great speakers, including myself. Thank you very much.